So this chapter is about death, manner, cause, mechanism, and how to determine the time of death. A little bit of a morbid subject, so we're going to try to keep it light. So the first thing we have to talk about is the blanks of death, and there's a couple of them. Manner of death, which means how the person actually died. There's various options for that. Cause of death, the reason they died. Mechanism of death, the specific body failure that led to their death. And then time of death, when they actually died. So first, going into depth with manner of death. So as I said, manner of death is one of 5 ways in which a person's death can be classified. The first option for manner of death is natural. This is obviously the most common. This is just an interruption, a failure of bodily functions, potentially resulting from old age or some type of disease. Most deaths do occur naturally. Accidental death is another option. This is caused by unplanned events, such as a car accident or a fall that led to death. Nothing was done deliberately or maliciously by anybody involved. Unfortunately, accidents do happen and they can lead to death. Suicidal manner of death is when a person chooses to take his or her life knowing that they will die. Homicidal is when the death of a person was intentionally caused by another person. And then undetermined death is not a common option, but this can be used whenever a medical examiner cannot actually conclude how the death occurred. This basically just leaves open the case for further investigation. So some examples of manners of death. I don't know if you need to write these down. You're taking your own notes. You do what you want, but you do have a worksheet where you will have to determine the manner of death. So at least pay attention to the examples. So in this example, I'm trying to determine, was this man's death natural or was it a homicide? So it says, a man with a heart condition is assaulted and he dies from a heart attack during the assault. So yes, he does have an underlying heart condition that could lead to a heart attack at any given time, but because he was assaulted and that led to his death, this is actually a homicide. Had the man not been assaulted, he probably would not have died from a heart attack, at least on this day. An elderly woman dies due to neglect by her son who lived with her. Is this manner of death going to be natural or homicide? Well, yes, she was elderly, and death can be caused by age, but that doesn't mean she was in bad health just because she was elderly. The neglect by her son choosing not to care for her, maybe feed her, whatever it may be, has led to her death. So this is, again, homicide. You do not have to write the italicized font in your notes, just something to think about and for me to remember to tell you. So as I said, sometimes it is difficult to determine manner of death, especially between suicide, homicide, or an accidental. So for example, someone overdoses. Did they actually mean to overdose or was it an accident? Did they just mix the wrong prescriptions together? Sometimes that can be hard to tell. Did a person mean to shoot themselves or shoot their friend playing with a gun, cleaning their gun, whatever it may be? Or was it an accident? So sometimes it is very difficult to determine if something was natural versus accidental or intentional or suicidal. So like I said, the undetermined manner of death is not very common, but it does leave the case open for further investigation, which could potentially determine the actual manner of death. All right, cause of death. Cause of death is going to determine the actual injury or disease that led to the chain of events that obviously result in death. So some examples include, this is just some examples, natural causes of death, disease, physical injury, trauma to the body, to the organs, poisoning, accidental poisoning does occur. If you've ever seen the movie Erin Brockovich, the whole town is basically poisoned by the water supply, not done intentionally. Cardiac or neurological events such as a heart attack or a stroke, those are all natural causes of death. And then you have deliberate causes of death, a shooting, burning, hanging, poisoning that was intentional, drowning, suffocation. But once again, drowning can be accidental and so can suffocation. So you have a little kid who falls into a pool and cannot swim, they may drown. You have someone that gets pulled under a current, even if they are a good swimmer. You could have a little kid put a bag over their head playing and accidentally suffocate themselves. So like I said, it does take some investigation to determine the manner of death and therefore the cause of death. What was that manner? You can also have a proximate cause of death, which basically refers to an underlying cause compared to the actual final cause. So here's some examples of proximate causes of death. So a healthy person is repeatedly kicked in the kidneys during a brutal beating, and they soon after die of kidney failure. Okay, the proximate cause of death is going to be the beating. Okay, that was the chain of events that led to their death. However, they officially died of kidney failure. So the cause of death would be kidney failure, but the proximate cause of death would be the beating, which caused the kidney failure. Okay, and the mechanism of death describes the specific changes in the body. These could be physiological, physical, or chemical events, and that stopped the life that caused the official death to occur. So some examples. If you have a cause of death as a shooting, the mechanism of death would be the loss of blood or the stoppage of brain function due to that trauma. If you have the cause of death is a heart attack, the mechanism of death would be the heart stopping its beating, cardiac arrest. If the cause of death is a car accident, the mechanism of death would be the trauma to the body and to the organs that caused organ failure. If the cause of death is strangulation, the mechanism of death is the lack of oxygen to the body and the brain, asphyxiation. Okay, so eventually you'll have a worksheet where you have to determine manner, which is one of 5 options, the cause of death, and then the mechanism, what actually stopped their body from living.